what are your expectations on the dollar side of things? Is the weakness likely to continue when you take a look at rate differentials, when you take a look at some of the volatility going into the election, as well as the prospect of a pretty uneven recovery from the pandemic?
Right. I think U.S. dollar direction is one of the key drivers for the Asian markets, and we remain quite comfortable at this point of time. Now, to take a step back, we all know that Asia tends to do well when the U.S. dollar is weak. And right now, we actually believe that U.S. dollar should remain on the weaker side for three reasons. Number one, the U.S. rate differential versus some of the other developed markets has come down this year and should remain narrow. Second, the U.S. growth is likely to recover slower than other regions, particularly when you compare with Asia. And then finally, there is still uncertainty around the U.S. election. So investors may not fly to the U.S. dollar for safe haven assets. So I think overall, we're saying that the U.S. dollar should remain on the weaker side, and that should be good for Asian equities.
Right. So you mentioned the US elections, which is really interesting because we're looking at, in terms of VIX October contracts, we're looking at this as potentially the most risky event, right, in VIX futures history. In terms of the implications for EMs, we've heard from Bank of America saying that emerging market investors may not be pricing in a potential decline if we do get the risk of the US election pricing the US dollar higher, right? Is there a risk that we're kind of misjudging what the dollar could do post-November?
Right. I think the U.S. election is certainly one of the key risk factors for Asian markets as a whole. I think for us, we think that many things can happen before November, so it's very hard to predict the outcome, the election outcome. Clearly, who is the next U.S. president will have a profound impact on our investment universe, particularly in China. But then we think that the broad policy direction to China will not change, whether Trump will continue or the Democrats takes over. However, the magnitude of the policies measures may differ. So for us, we would like to focus on the predictable, say, for example, the big trends in China. And then as far as the U.S. dollar is concerned, I think if you look at the U.S. dollar fundamental, like the real effective exchange rate, I think the U.S. dollar should not be supported at this current level, mainly because of the twin deficits. So combining these fundamental factors as well as the ongoing uncertainty, we think that the U.S. dollar should remain on the weaker side.